My name is Dr. Martin Koyabe, GFCE Africa. I'll be your moderator for today, but also the key person between you and lunch. So I'll make sure that I take care of that timing. We really have a very important session this afternoon, which we want to get on with. And we are going to look at the CBMs. These are confidence building measures, and also the cyber resilience, and how does it relate to one of our work stack. Could you just put the other slides, please? I think they've put the different slides, please. With me, I have on my left, my immediate left is Yusuph Kileo. I will make sure that they speak for themselves to introduce themselves much further. And then the further right is none other than Ambassador Segun Olugbile, who will also give us a session on what he does. So I'll just give them 1 minute to introduce themselves and also tell the audience what you're doing. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I feel like you guys are tired. Is it because we are looking forward for the lunch, or what happened? Good afternoon. Well, actually, my name is Yusuph Kileo, a cybersecurity and digital forensics investigation expert. I have a long history. I worked with several organizations before, things like TTCL, our telecom company here in Tanzania. I worked with cybercrime unit. I was fighting cyber criminals in Tanzania. I've also been a board of a FICTA and many, many other things, ICANN and so on. One thing about me, I was only trained in cybersecurity and digital forensics. So if you take me outside this particular area, I'm not able to do anything. But when it comes to cybersecurity and digital forensics, yes, I can be able to do something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, UNECA. I'm simply Segun Olugbile. I've been a cybersecurity advocate and a practitioner as well. I've pioneered cybersecurity program in Nigeria, and I'm a member of the Nigerian Cybersecurity Advisory Council, and at the same time a member of the Nigerian Advisory Council on e-commerce. I really appreciate the fact that we have the opportunity to share what we have done over the course of the year. I've been in this since 2007 when I caught the vision, and I've been very consistent up to today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As you can see behind me, we have one more panelist who wasn't able to make it. That is Dr. Jameson Olufuye, who wasn't able to make it for this particular session. Just moving forward, let me just put some of the basic concepts just before we have a presentation by the ambassador. This session, as I said earlier, will be looking at confidence measures that we do have, and many countries and regions have been able to implement. We'll also look at areas of cyber resilience and how do we make sure that it relates to item number 5 of the WSIS Action Line number 5. And the aims really here is to look at the promotion of cyber diplomacy, how do we foster international relationship, cooperations, and even dialogue within member states, because I'm sure this is part of where we have a lot of effort that is required. There's also the issue around developing what we call the norms and understanding these norms and the confidence measures that are being taken by member states, especially around the globe, and to understand Africa's position, and especially the regions where we within this particular sentiments. And then further, we want to make sure that we enhance the resilience through capacity building. What are the efforts that are going on within your countries, especially for countries that are already embarking on digital strategies and making sure that they have the digital programs that are going on. We know that without a resilient infrastructure, then even when you are putting up all these digital applications and tools, it will not be able to sustain what we call the threats that are there. And therefore, we'll see what Tanzania have done. And we have, I think, Yusuph here to tell us that. But first of all, let's look at the perspective of the recent GCI study that was done by ITU for member states. We want to relate that and see how does it relate to this particular topic. So I'll give this opportunity to the ambassador to give us just a short preview in your presentation, roughly about 5 minutes, to just give us an overview of how it relates to the WSIS program and all these efforts that are going on, looking at what member states have done. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Please, can you, I think there's a better presentation that I gave to you. Can you give the PDF version, please? I will be looking toward the African WSIS Plus 20 review, the success, the challenges, and the prospects. I will probably just give you an assessment of the progress and the challenge and what have been done and how it connects with the GDC. Now, okay. Thank you for this opportunity to present my insight. Once again, I'm a president of the Global Network for Cyber Solutions, and we have been established since 2008, and it's a vision that we have cut for ourselves, and we have done substantial work. Now, my presentation would dwell on the statistics and the facts available, what countries in Africa, have done over the course of the year. I'll rely much on the Rely on ITU recent statistics, which is of 2024. I know there are a bit of gaps and the error margin. I know there may be one or two issues, but that's still the best that we have for now. We can always improve on it. Now, I also just look at how it assets, how it's actually responding to what the African countries have done over the course of the year. Wow. Please, can you give, this is not what I presented. I have a better one. Please, PDF version is the completely, okay. I give you the PDF version, that will be better. So, WSIS is a fundamental global framework, and especially the phase 5 of the WSIS forum. It is focused on the implementing SDGs and the WSIS Action Line. And then it emphasized on cybersecurity and privacy, among other action line. It has motivated a global actions, including us as well in Nigeria. However, let's quickly look at the progress so far. Let's see what, can you please load my slide and see what the African countries have done. And then I'll also be looking at, it is essential for us to also look at, no, this is not my presentation, please. Mr. Chairman, can I please, so that they can sort themselves out, please. My slide, please. Or will you use my laptop?
Or maybe you can read from the laptop.
Yeah, I want the audience to see the statistics. So, once again, I will look at the African progress in the context of WSIS 20+ Action Line on cybersecurity. And then I think it's important for us to establish the rationale. Why are the African countries responding toward implementing cybersecurity strategy and measures? Okay. Okay. So Of course, it has been laid here that all over the world, we've had exponential growth in migration to cyberspace. We've had increase in digital service and all that. Then we also have increase in the demand. I can't control this from here. I can't control it from there. Let me just continue. I can't continue from there. So there has been increase in the demand, and we are beginning to see cybercrime as a service. And of recent, the cost of cyber global crime has been almost $10.5 trillion by Google. By 2025, the cost of cybercrime as a service, because cybercrime is being offered as a service now, and the emerging technology dynamics and the demands from African to safeguard their investments to protect the people and the data. However, it is always essential for us to look at the scope of WSIS. WSIS gives us a very strategic scope. But one of the scope that has been challenged really has to do with enhancing digital trust and confidence, which fall within the context of GDC. Now, I would love us to see the ITU progress reports. Can you please continue? Continue, please. Continue. Now, the ITU recently released 2024 Global Cybersecurity Index. It gave us the indicators, how they came up about it. But the most important emphasis here is that Africa is really not doing bad. If you look at the context within which ITU measured the performance and the progress of African countries, from the context of legal, technical, organizational capacity, and cooperation. So within the African context, if you compare that with all other regions, at least we have, to an extent, outperformed the Americans. When I saw these statistics, I actually support that notion, because cybersecurity has always, in fact, it has taken more of a front burner issues, and African countries have prioritized in the present circumstance. Now, let's look at it. Number one, you look at the enhanced digital trust and confidence. What has been done so far? I go to the next slide. If you look at the statistics, the African region has really, they've improved on their cybercrime legislations. We have had increase in cybersecurity awareness, and we have had, increase in establishments of the technical measures, SATs, and all that. And we've also had the strengthening of this capacity, the cybersecurity capacity building, though at the level of risk management framework and policy engagement. But the other side, which has to do core skills, we still have some challenges. Then in the areas of fostering international corporations, we have seen interplay of at least engagement of African countries in international, discussions and engagement on cybersecurity issues. And if you look at that statistic, it speaks to it as well. Because if you compare what we have done in the past, there is an increase, in engaging the international community, cooperating toward a basic framework to ensure that we have an harmonized, response on cybersecurity. Next slide. Unfortunately, you're not aligned with mine, so just stop it. Let me flow. In the areas of fostering cooperation as well, we've seen the adoption of African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection. And we've also seen the adoption of the Convention 18+, which has been orchestrated by the Council of Europe. And we have also seen that most African countries are, adopting and signing, onto onto Budapest Conventions on cybercrime. But however, we have started seeing a shift from cybercrime to cybersecurity. And we have seen an attempt in trying to create a cybercrime legislation, and at the same time looking at the cybersecurity component. Because over the course of the year, we have seen the impact. We have seen that cybercrime engagement is overshadowing the need to build internal cybersecurity capacity. And then I would have loved to show you statistics here, but unfortunately you cannot see it. African country is also performing to an extent in the areas of protecting digital rights and freedom. Let me use this as an example. We spoke about the need to adapt international instruments rather than to adopt. Let me use Nigeria as an example. We have seen the success of a data protection in the context of human rights, and that has deepened the consciousness in the heart of the people that data is not just the data you handle anyhow. It has become a critical part of you. So that has been fully, at least we've seen a regulatory implementation. We have seen the effort aimed at deepening that. And then industry has been created as well. Then in the areas of emerging technology, we have also seen the integration of AI in the operation of SAT. You see, we have seen African countries operating cybersecurity drill among themselves. It may not yet be at the level that we're expecting, but really, we have seen that effort. I think with increased commitment and funding, that should be enhanced in future. Then we have also seen as well the attempt at monitoring performance, because at least we have seen the third-party operator from the civil society, they have begun to ask questions. Let me give another example as well. There was a time we had cyber crime levies and all that. We saw how it generated interest from the private sector, from the civil society and non-government organization. They are getting engaged in cybersecurity advocacy as well. But then the most important thing is the accountability framework, because we have always been saying that cybersecurity should not be militarized. We have seen efforts or an attempt from the African countries in wanting to militarize cybersecurity. And we have also seen that the non-governmental sector, they've done at least to a larger extent in convincing the government to change the approach toward a civilian-led cybersecurity program. So, and I'd love to show you this to compare what we have done in Africa as what we have done in the Americas. Where are we performing well? We are performing well, and we have 5 countries in Africa. Yeah. No. Okay. I've already gone far. Okay, thank you. As you can see here, this gave us a comparative regional cybersecurity performance. What I did here is to bring up the ITU, what they have done in terms of measuring what we have done in Africa and what other guys have done in other regions. We are not really doing bad. If you look at the first-tier level, you see that we have 5 African countries performing well. And if you compare the other regions as well, you can see the difference. Now, looking at the timeline, if you look at the timeline here, we can see that the WSIS 20 plus, the WSIS plus 20 timeline within the short time gave us between 2023 and 2025. And anyway, the most important thing here is that the African cybersecurity environment and commitment is growing. It's growing because if you look at that statistics, over 80% of African countries have adopted one strategy or policy, and they have implemented some certain, at least certain level of measures. But the main challenge that we have is while we are moving to the next midterm operations, if you look at it very well, you look at the need to enhance cybersecurity capacity building and fostering international cooperation. But my main concern here is the cybersecurity capacity building, in terms of skill acquisitions, in terms of a tool that is needed to drive cybersecurity program in Nigeria, in Africa. Now, that will lead us to looking at some of the challenges: limited infrastructures, insufficient cybersecurity skill, financial constraint, money is never enough and funding is always never enough because the policymaker they are yet to see cybersecurity as a strategic component of economic growth. And we have rising cyber threat as well, and a weakening cyber regulatory in Africa. Really, Africa is yet to have effective cybersecurity regulation that could probably drive compliances, risk management issues, and all that. But we have seen at least certain level of commitment within the data protection cycle. We have seen that now we have a data protection regulations in Africa. At least some few countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and Gambia. I think I've seen the efforts of some of these countries in South Africa. They have embedded, data protection as part of their digital ecosystem measure. Next slide. Now, the prospect, the GDC offers us a better opportunity to leverage collective actions. And that's one of the reasons why we are here, to review what we have done and to synergize on the best way to address some of our issues. At the GFCE level, we have always been committing ourselves toward improving advancing cybersecurity. We have supported the WSIS actions for the past, since when we were created since 2007. We have established a School of Advanced Cybersecurity Studies, and the idea behind that is we have identified something. Most African young people are always going for certifications, but the skill is lacking in tool development. Coding, yes, but when you look at the programming languages and all that, how many African countries do we find there in developing or researching in the modeling? So all these things is what inspired us at the GFCE. And we also have, in our own level, we have a deepening partnership between ourselves and the research institution like university, where we have orchestrated the research. And that research, we are actually currently doing the research on adaptive cybersecurity governance model for interconnected society. Why? We have clusters of frameworks across Africa. ISACA framework, SANS framework, what are we frameworks? Which one actually speak to the peculiarity of African cybersecurity landscape? So this is what motivated our research. And that research fought within the line of the idea is to really find a way to build a unified cybersecurity governance framework that could be adapted to drive African cybersecurity. And this is in line with WSIS vision on cybersecurity. We've also had a program which we established of recent, and that has to do with emerging technology skill for Africa. Our vision is to train 100,000 young Africans. We've seen a lot of harm in emerging technology. Yeah, we have seen misunderstanding, misinformation, and all that. So we are beginning to really take that and realign the mindset. Let me use it. Sorry, I'll soon finish. So we've also established International Center for Emerging Technology to deepen the skills in emerging technology with a university in Nigeria at our own level. And we have also started running cybersecurity program, blockchain programs, all in the context of development. And then we will continue to do our best. But since 2008, we have shaped the policy, the program, and the direction of cybersecurity in Nigeria. And the stakeholders that we work more with the high-level stakeholders, government stakeholders. We shape the mindset. We ensure that they understand the content of cybersecurity, and we also draw commitment to ensure that we draw values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador Segun. What you see there on what he has just presented, it really represents a very good reflection within Africa. When I look at the GCI data that has just been produced by ITU, we find that when you compare the Americas and Africa, you see that even with Tier 1, which has been labeled countries that are actually showing role model, you'll see that we have Ghana, we have Kenya, Mauritius, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And I'm so proud to see Tanzania there because I remember so many years ago we were here pushing for the cybersecurity strategy, pushing for the critical infrastructure, risk management, and so forth. And this is really, really a very poignant point. But just to break a little bit, Yusuph, why is Tanzania where it is? Why can't you tell us a little bit? Why is Tanzania where it is?
Thank you very much, Martin. Actually, in Tanzania, what I could say, we have seen that even these top leaders now understand that there is a need to put efforts to protect our information, to protect our data, to protect our money. Simply because we're all aware that cybercrimes, by its nature, being borderless, having the characteristics of having a tremendous destructive power, that they can do a lot of wonders if you don't pay attention to your cybersecurity. For example, you see issues of losing money, losing data, attack on critical infrastructure, shutting down electricity, stopping car from moving or crashing car remotely, and so on. So the government now, I could say, we have a political will. And as you can see, even last month, even the president was addressing the nation and spent around 5 minutes talking about cybersecurity and addressing a lot of challenges and how we need to come up with solutions to those challenges of cybersecurity. So from that point of view, now it went down to implementers. We initiated, for example, in cybersecurity awareness. We have cybersecurity awareness month that we celebrate every month of October, and we have been doing a tremendous job across the country. When it comes to protecting our kids, we have launched this year in February Child Online Protection Initiative, which is doing a great job across the country. In terms of capacity building, we have several universities that are providing security courses, cybersecurity courses and digital forensics. And actually now we are in a place where we want to review the curriculum so that it can meet a standard, a global standard, so that we can have competent people. And I think we're planning also to do the incubation of this individual, because most of these African country, one problem that I've seen is that you find we equip youngsters or this youth with knowledge of cybersecurity, and then we leave them on the street. At the moment you leave them on the street, they become a threat to our national security. Why? Because they are not absorbed. So and they have enough knowledge to cause different troubles, to distract different things. So I think we have seen that as well as one of the serious problems. As we do a lot on capacity building, we are trying also to see how we can start tapping all these skill sets and incubate them so that we can utilize them in a good way and reduce the number of cyber criminals on the street. As well, we have done a number of good job when it comes to complying with Malabo Convention. We have Data Protection Act. We have Data Protection Commission, which is currently working. We have Cybercrime Act, and we have Cybercrime Unit. And fortunately, I was running that unit, Cybercrime Unit in Tanzania. We have also the Financial Crime Unit that we also deal with these frauds and so on. Apart from that, we also put a lot of effort on making sure that our not only the laws, but also the tools available. If you look at TZ site today, when you go to TZ site, we have a state-of-art equipment that support our countries. And then we have a singular department, for example, dedicated for health, dedicated for telecom companies, dedicated for financial institutions, and so on. So we are doing a lot of a job to make sure that our cyberspace remains secure. But one of the challenges I could say is that we know that we need, we are doing a lot of good work. But at the same time, we need to remember that cyber criminals, they don't. And unfortunately, most of African countries, we lack a right skill set on these right places. If you go to a set of different countries, if you go to units that we operate on with cybersecurity on different countries, you find people are not really, they're not that much knowledgeable compared to those who are on the street. As a result, we find the scenario whereby criminals now overwhelms the way we are fighting them. I have my say, I always say, I will finalize there, that I always say we cannot fight while you're having the knife and those local tools, fighting with people with guns and other things. Definitely that kind of war you will never be able to reach your needed target. So that's, I think, our problem, and I believe we're still working on that. And the best way to do it is through incubation. We should have the good skills so that we can embed them on our critical infrastructure, on our authorities, and et cetera, so that they can be able to support us the way we want them to support us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just park that for now, but let's give him a round of applause. I think Tanzania is an exemplary country where they've started from scratch, and I think Yusuph has given us a very good timeline of what they've done. Number one, I know the criminals don't sleep, but the point is that, number one, they've got political will. And I think that's very important. You need political will in order to make sure that things function. And what is coming out as evidence is that there's a political will from the top going all the way down and cascading into other areas. Then number two, which I think I've learned from this, is that there is what we call coordination across different departments, different units, to ensure that everyone is part of the game plan. And hence the reason why we are seeing some successes. There is an incentive mechanism of where they are taking the youth from the streets and everybody else. I think what you can do is just have what we call bounty hackers. They get money if they get errors from specific websites. That could be another way of using those particular youth and incorporating them into the culture of cybersecurity. And then I think what we are seeing here, where you have the success, is there is a little bit of capacity building that is going on within the country. And these are very key lessons that we need to learn. But just park that for now. We'll come back and you'll convince us of how are you incentivizing people to be able to stick to where they are. Because I think one of the problems we have is that as soon as somebody is trained in a specific skill set, they leave. Okay? You take them to the SAT, they get trained, they leave. Because we don't have the capacity of retraining, or rather retaining that particular skill set. But let me go to Ambassador. Ambassador, you've given us an alludement of all the statistics. I've seen there's some specific countries that are in tier 5. I think if we are very, very specific here, tier 5, we have Burundi, Central African Republic, Eritrea, Guinea-Bissau. And if they're here, you'll tell us why you're still there. So tell us, Prof, what do you think they should do to move quicker? What is it that those countries need to take into consideration to move quicker into the next level? And then we'll come back to the CBMs again.
Okay, thank you very much. When we look at the statistics I presented, thanks to ITU, there's something common among the 5 first countries. What is it? The governance approach and what Abe mentioned, political will. Now, in some of these countries, sometimes they view cybersecurity as a national security issues. And unfortunately, they militarize it. That is, they domicile the cybersecurity program within the law enforcement and security domain. And unfortunately, wouldn't allow stakeholders to interface with them, because by the nature of the security agency, they are conservative in nature. That's number one. Number two, you also have the issues of capacity, the ability to understand really what is really the problem. One of the things I have discovered, if you also look at those countries, they have probably performed a risk-based assessment. They were able to understand the areas of weakness. the areas of strength, and they are able to, capitalize on that based on the areas of the strength. For example, Tanzania, in terms of population, they are not as big as Nigeria. And if you look at those countries in the lower well, they are smaller country. But the question is why are they not implementing cybersecurity program? Maybe an awareness is not well deepened across the space. I remember when we started cybersecurity awareness, people thought we were talking about virus installation. So I think it will take a conscious effort. Then number two, the leadership. When I talk about leadership, the executive, the lawmakers, and then the judiciary, they need to understand that cybersecurity is not just a matter of computer. It is a multidisciplinary and multi-sectorial, issues. So I think in those countries, they are yet to have that a basic understanding. And not until when they have it, they will probably continue to see the same result. That's it.
Yeah, did you want to add something? Because we shall go back to the floor for them also to ask a few questions, but just add something there and then we...
Yeah, I want to add what he has said. I think most countries, luckily I've worked with over 49 countries across. I think the bigger problem is you find countries, they may not be able to understand if the problem they're experiencing is cybercrime or is it what? For example, distributed denial of service attack. Your systems, criminal manage to bring them down. And they may think maybe it's a technical problem, maybe some wire has been removed. So that lack of awareness make them not putting a lot of effort in fighting these cyber criminals. And number two, also, I've seen most of this country, you see, they have a tendency of thinking maybe cyber crimes, they can only do a small damage to our countries or small damage to, and they forget cybercrime can bring down our economy, they can disrupt our economy, they can threat our national security, they can crush our critical infrastructure, they can do many crazy stuff. So all these crime that we used to do in a normal way, now all of these crime have migrated to cybercrime. People can kill others on the cybercrime. People can switch off electricity on cybercrime using cybercriminals. These cybercriminals can do many things that we used to see in a normal way. So countries, I think they need to understand this, and when they understand this, they'll be able to put a lot of effort to fight this cybercrime.
Yeah, I think that's why when you look behind me, we are talking about the norms. How should countries behave? And I just want to follow up on that particular point, because when you have the UN norms, which are roughly about 11, these norms are, first of all, non-binding. In the first instance, they are voluntary principles that define how states should respond, how states should behave. And by doing that, what it means is that it minimizes what we call malicious cyber activities, as you can see in those particular norms up there, and also promote what we call the peaceful and cooperative use of the internet. So cyber norms is an important component, as you can see up there, which is reflected. There are many organizations that have been working on this, and I know so many of you in the room here have been really part of this, especially when we started with the UN GGE, all the way to the OEWG, and then moving on to other regional organizations, which are working very entirely in the norms space. Of course, there are organizations such as the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, which is working on cyber norms. And also, we have the Paris Call and also IGF. There's a lot of mention around how these cyber norms can go. So we just want to drill into the critical infrastructure and how are we able to make sure that the critical infrastructure is safe and resilient. Back to you in Tanzania. Do we have what we call a risk assessment of your critical infrastructure? Do we have an identification of the critical infrastructures in Tanzania, for example?
Thank you. Actually, now we are in a stage where we want not only, we have already identified all critical infrastructure, whether it's telecom, financial institution, etc., water sector, transportation sectors, and all. And what I understand, I think not parliament, because the parliament has passed it, but still we have the presidential, we are waiting for the president and the ministers to assign and to make sure that now critical infrastructure will be protected by law, and everyone should be responsible, or everyone who is responsible with critical infrastructure has to follow certain things. For example, you should not let a service not being available, this unavailability, the issue of integrity and so on, the CIA triangle. I think that's where we are going. And I think soon, within 3 months, we'll be reaching that stage. So as a country, we understand that critical infrastructure, for example, today in Tanzania, we have the SGR is fully automated. And everything, electricity, one of the things that really pushed that SGR from one point to another. Then we have those systems, and we have sensors. There's the story of IoT and all. So if we don't pay attention to these things, cybercriminal may do many things to those critical infrastructure. Things like our financial institution. Nowadays we have a lot, telecom industry in Tanzania, we have a lot of them compared to other countries. So all these, people rely on these communications, rely on, trust this financial institution to save their money there. So we want to make sure that those people who are handling this critical infrastructure are held accountable. If they can't provide service on time, if something is happening, they don't have enough measures put in place so that they can protect this critical infrastructure, then they should be answerable, and a lot we're expecting to happen very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Just a quick one here. In terms of how critical infrastructure is managed, it's always important to you can have a strategy that actually drives critical infrastructure protection within your main strategy as a country. There is also a component within that where you could look and say, do we have a risk assessment of the critical infrastructure in our country to understand and identify what is of risk, what sectors are critical within your country. In Europe, for example, we have roughly about 11 core critical sectors. And this is agreed within the member states. That's roughly about 27 member states. There were 28, now they're 27. If you go to the US, it's roughly about 14 critical sectors. So it could be transport, it could be energy, and so forth. Some countries have different type of critical sectors where they take a lot of credence and protection of their monuments, for example, and that becomes a critical sector. So therefore, every country, it's important that we have an identification of what your critical sector is. And then the second part is doing what we call an assessment of the risk assessment to understand what is the impact if that critical sector went down. And then the interdependencies. And what is it that needs to be done to make sure that you maintain what we call the service level agreements, the minimum that you can contain. If let's say you run out of power, how much can you go longer before you start affecting other areas? Back to you, Prof. In Nigeria, you've got many states, federal government, large population. How do you maintain your physical infrastructure? Just give us a tip of how you deal with this before we go back to the floor.
Thank you very much. You added Prof to my title. I claim it. Well, Nigeria is a very unique case. Sincerely speaking, I had the privilege of organizing the stakeholders engagement between the military, law enforcement, and the telecommunication infrastructure owner. And sincerely speaking, it should start from there. Then after that, Nigeria went further to do what we call identification, classification, and the prioritization of the CIP. And then of recent, we went back again. We did engagement with the policymaker and all that, and with all the key stakeholders. What we did, the telecom operators are one of the major owners of DPI. So once we captured the head mobilized everyone. And then today, Nigeria, we have successfully incorporated CIP as part of the legal framework, the Nigerian Cybercrime Act, which has been amended just about last year. Now we have moved further. what we have done now is to enforce the position of law with an executive order of the president. Now, what it means is that basically Nigeria has adopted all the DPI in the country as a critical information infrastructure, which means that any attack against any of such a DPI is an offense against national security. But I have a worry. You see, there is a dependency of our economy and life, not only in Nigeria, in other African countries. So if other countries are not also identifying and classifying and then putting the law to ensure that those DPI are protected, if something happened in Ghana, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that, if something happened in Ghana, it will affect Nigeria because there is an interconnection, interdependency of infrastructure. So I think that is the area that we may have to start talking at the African level. Thank you.
Okay, I know time is of the essence. We really need to come to the floor. Members of Parliament want to talk. So what I'll do is let me allow the floor to talk a little bit because it's interactive. We'll take, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's start from there. Please, Mike. Can we have microphones here, please? Members of Parliament.
Oh, so sorry. Thank you for this great opportunity. I want to start by congratulating Tanzania for this great strive. I have to say that I have done a lot of work with the Council of Europe on the Cybercrime Convention. Though Tanzania is not a party to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, but you have been able to advance at this level. So seriously, I sincerely want to congratulate you and to come back to say that this convention talks about, in fact, the 2 additional protocols on disclosure of electronic evidence and cooperation. Now, I really want to find out from Tanzania, how have you been able to achieve cooperation with other countries, given the US and the complexity of cybercrime, given that someone can sit even in the US or elsewhere and use a computer to commit a crime in your country, and considering that you have not been able to sign up to this convention, but you are able to achieve this kind of success, how have you been able to achieve your collaboration with other countries, even in Africa or out of Africa? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador and Yusuph, for your great insights and cybercrimes. And this is a topic that I am very much interested in, aware that we are trying to come up with a bill in the regional parliament on data protection and governance. And I would like to ask if there is, because infrastructure connectedness in terms of like ICTs, you find that we are using connection recently, Tanzania and Uganda did a collaboration. And then I would like to know in the other regional setups or regional economic communities, what has worked and how can we use that to strengthen our cyber security, especially in the East African region, aware that Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya are a little bit ahead than the rest of the regional, the rest of the countries within the communities. That's what I want to know. And then 2, we have cyber crimes within the region, for example, like terrorism, and how would we address that in this cyber security, cyber protection within Africa? And lastly, is there any model anywhere that has worked that can be replicable in Africa? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, the presenters. I think your presentations actually are eye-openers, because with all the things we've been talking about for the past few days, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of connectivity, if this one is not right, we are not getting anywhere. So we must protect what we have. Now, looking at the issue of collaboration, like my colleague just mentioned, is key. Because like he said, an incident in Gambia, for example, in the financial sector, somebody outside Morocco used a machine in Morocco to commit a crime in the Gambia. How do we pursue that particular person? And that's the reason why it's very important that we talk to members of parliament. Because in Gambia, what we have done is we have a mutual legal assistance law that we passed last year. That would allow us to be able to collaborate with our neighbors in case we are pursuing somebody who commit a crime in the Gambia and we are staying in Ghana or Nigeria or somewhere else. And these are key. We need to be able to work together, to collaborate so that we can find them wherever they are. Just like right now, the physical security we have all over the place, if somebody commits a crime or runs to Uganda or runs to Zambia, there is a way that you can talk to them or get them through Interpol. So we need to be able to also get the same thing in terms of collaboration among ourselves so that we can pursue those people. Now, the last area I just wanted to mention was about the issue of risk identifications, which is also essential. Each country needs to be able to identify your critical infrastructure, private or public. And then we do the risk assessment. That will tell you exactly what are the factors that you need to take care of. Now, the issue of shared infrastructure actually comes into play. Now, in that aspect, who is responsible? Who does the audit to ensure that you are actually protecting those areas? Like in the Gambia, for example, there are certain things that are protected by the government, but there are some in the private that are protected by the private sector, like the telecom industry itself. But I think there needs to be a policy, in fact, a proper policy, that should be able to identify them and to be able to audit to ensure that there is proper protection. Because the financial industry is key. If one of them goes down, particularly with shared infrastructure, we may get ourselves in trouble. So I think there's a need to have a proper policy in place among all of us to ensure that we are able to do the audit and to be able to help people accountable when things go down. Thank you.
Okay, I know time is of the essence. I've just been warned. We've had 3 on the floor. Let's have the last one at the back, and then you and then at the back. You and then at the back. Very quickly.
Thank you very much. My name is Wisdom. Yes, Honorable just touched on the law. So I was coming to actually ask a question on the cybercrime and the law, but I think that has been addressed. But I would like to hear more on that because our judiciary and then law enforcement need more education when it comes to cybercrime. And also, I see more of top-down instead of bottom-up process in dealing with these cyber issues. Government is more or less like handling the cyber issues within the government cycle and forgetting the community angle. So that also need to we need to look at that and try to address those issues. Lastly, I see government using cybersecurity as a business, and then when you do that, then that means you cut off the majority who falls within the less privileged zone, if I should use that word. So we need to also look at that and try to address them holistically for us.
Can you explain cybersecurity as a business? Give an example.
Yes. I'll give an example using my country, Ghana. Ghana started well with cybersecurity, the policies and everything, the implementation, and then it got to a point. I find myself in one of their forums, and then it looks like all the people in there were business people. And then when you ask that question, why other stakeholders are not here, they are not able to answer. More or less like they coming out with kind of certification sort of, so trying to certify people for them to work with, and then they have this annual subscription and all of that, and you don't see them solving the community problem. You don't see them addressing the community basic issues, day in, day out. The normal person that you see on the street use the phone to transact business online. Mobile money, hackers are found within that angle and all of that. So,
okay, I think I understand you. So there's compliance, people pay, but the government doesn't do whatever it is, so they use that money for something else. Is that the way I'm understanding it?
No.
We'll come back to that. We'll try and answer that. Let's go to the back. Yeah.
Thank you, and to the panel members for your presentation. I heard you talk about change, risk management to be embedded in cybersecurity, which is very important so that you are able to understand the dependencies between the different components, understand the impact if one thing goes down against another. And one of you also talked about cybersecurity being interdisciplinary, right? It includes multiple stakeholders, right? And we cannot distinguish cybersecurity from ICTs, right? In fact, the ICTs are the foundation of cybersecurity, right? It's all about technology. But I have seen a growing trend, particularly in Africa, where we have started removing cybersecurity from the core ICTs by establishing, for example, cybersecurity authorities. Now you have digital development agencies or authorities designing and implementing the digital tools and services, and cybersecurity starts from the time that you design your systems and programming your systems and implementing them. But what the growing trend now is you have people designing, building, implementing, and even starting operationalization before you even have cybersecurity authority people coming on stake. I think this is a growing concern in Africa that we need to look at. Instead of creating silos, I think we need to see how we integrate cybersecurity and the design and development and operationalization of the ICTs. Thank you.
I'll come.
The three contributions that we started, they all centered on collaboration. I think that's the main problem that we have seen in many countries. First, we need to collaborate from within before we start collaborating with other external entities. For example, you may go to a country, you find there are several entities dealing with cybersecurity. Some they're dealing with cybersecurity on their angle, the resources are scarce because there are many, you need to distribute to many. In terms of fund also become a challenge. So what I normally advise is that our country should now thinking of having one umbrella that really deal with all related cybersecurity issues. Instead of having many, then we can't see the impact. As a result, people cannot see the impact of what you're doing. So that's number one. And when it comes to collaborate with other countries, evidence and all, I think we all agree and we are all aware that cybercrime are borderless crime. They recognize no border. Anyone from any country can commit a crime to another country. We have seen information warfare, cyber warfare between countries. They don't send their soldiers. They start with cybercrime, cyber warfare, and then they move forward with other ways. So I think looking at it in that angle, we can't afford not to collaborate beyond borders. So we have to strengthen collaboration from within, having a contact person, then collaborate with bodies. There we can be able to achieve our target. In African countries, we are in position, for example, UNECA, African Union, and so on. We are in position to ask our leaders to make sure that they agree upon these matters, because it is within us. We have just to agree that we have to collaborate. because there is no need for us not to collaborate while we speak of one Africa. The other thing that I was asked, and I had, I should stop here first.
Let's Prof.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let me respond to the Honorable. Within the African region, there has been inter-agency, inter-country initiative. For example, at African Union, you have African Expert Working Group. They're actually doing a very wonderful work. African Union, they have. So I believe someone from your country should have been part of it. So that provide, a kind of platform to share information, which is very, very important, and then to collaborate, on cybersecurity issues. Then on data protection as well, you have one of the most vibrant data protection framework in Africa. Is very strong. Even the Council of Europe is in full support of it. So I think it would be nice to contact African Union for that. Now, terrorism. You see, this is a very good question, because the effort has always been on cybercrime. And cybercrime is just one component of cyber threat. Because if you go anywhere, cybercrime, who is talking about terrorism? Who is talking about espionage? Who is talking about child online protection? So all this, what we have done in Nigeria is to provide a shared model, approach in which multi-agencies that have statutory power in child matter, in telecommunication, they provide measures. For example, Nigerian police has a domestic cybercrime program which deal with the last man in the community. Even recently, they had awareness. This is October awareness month and all that, and it is supported by Interpol. And this is where Tanzania might probably have a problem. If you don't have, if you are yet to sign onto Budapest Convention and all that, when you talk about trans-border corporations, you are going to have a problem. So that's the whole essence of Tanzania and others, to ensure that they, they sign that, and then they are sent to that conventions so that they can adopt international best practice concerning trans-border, crime issues. But within the data protection, I think it is well embedded. There's a trans-border flow of data. In fact, there are countries that had, we have what we call white list and black list, framework within the data protection, which means that if your country belongs to the white list group, so my country can have a cooperation with you, and the data can flow between your country and my own country, because you have already put in place a data protection regime, which also similar to what we have. So that is that. Then let me speak to what Wisdom said, bottom-up approach. I think the civil society should also be proactive. In Nigeria, for example, I have a lady who is doing a great work, Cyber Foundation. She focuses on young girls, and she was able to connect. In fact, we see a lot of girls from law, from all lockdown, whatever, coming into data protection, cyber security, and all that. I think rather than being reacting to issues, this is where the non-sector, the NGO should also, engage. We do our own engagement at the policy level, and it has brought about a national security program. It has brought about a lot of impact. So I think the NGO should please identify that area where it's a very broad issue. Government cannot do it alone, and you need top. Also, you need to engage people at the top so that things can be aligned, fund can flow, and then they can also support what the bottom end, are doing.
Thank you so much.
The last one, sorry, the last one. Okay, thank you.
So, So very quickly, because of time, I just want to seek you to make your interventions. And then Jimson online to make an intervention.
Okay.
I know I'll be punished, but let's do it.
Shall I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I was about to talk about the Budapest Convention after the MP from the Gambia spoke about that issue, cooperation between countries for facing cyber crimes and all that.
The thing is, the last time I researched that issue, it was only Senegal which ratified the Budapest Convention as an African country, the Nigerian as well. So are there going to be sort of Budapest Convention, the African Budapest Convention between African nations?
Yeah, I think there were other countries. It wasn't even Guinea did the convention. But I think what we are seeing here, let's go online. We give Jimson. Can Jimson come online, please? Can you put Jimson online, please?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. I want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much. And greetings, everybody. Good afternoon. And it's good morning from my side in Virginia, USA. Sorry, I could not be with you physically. I just want to also thank ECA for what they've been doing and ensuring that we are kept engaged constantly on many issues. And now on WSIS plus 20 review, and also talking about the Summit of the Future. Cybersecurity is a very, very serious issue, as we all know. And it's kind of really connected to everything we do today, because security is key. I want to appreciate moderator, Doctor, and Olugbile, Ambassador Olugbile, and Kileo for doing the justification to the discussion. Well, we all know that ECA take this very seriously, and based on their report, recent report, there is a correlation between cybersecurity maturity and development. A 10% increase in cybersecurity maturity will yield about 5.4% increase in GDP per capita. On the basis of that, I had the privilege of doing a research to add value on the need for us to continually do assessment, as we have always outlined. Not national assessment alone, but assessment that has to do with enterprises, organizations, and nations generally. And as a test case, if you have your smartphone, you can actually check TCMM.Africa website. There we have the beta version of the model, and you could do an assessment. In fact, it has 3 pillars. It has 18 factors and about 100 indicators. And it cuts across all the topics you have outlined in terms of governance framework, in terms of zero trust mechanism, in terms of the network structure you have. We know generally it's IPv6 now, but the emphasis is on we are using IPv4 right now, mostly in Africa, but we are encouraging that we should move to IPv6. It will further enhance our security posture. So these are part of the indicators, the metrics. Do we have international collaboration, like the Budapest Convention? Have we signed the Malabo Convention? So those are those indicators that will give you an assessment. So we have about 5 levels. So you can always know the level you are in. Once you make an improvement, then you can check again. You can do assessment yourself. So it's part of our own contribution to enhancing our cybersecurity posture, because the study has shown that we cannot afford to continue to lose money, the money that we could use to foster our development. So once again, the site is tcmm.africa, tcmm.africa.
Okay.
Please, you can reach me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jimson. Jimson was meant to be here with us physically, but he's managed to at least get some of his ideas. And I think that document of research that they're talking about, I've seen it, and there is also a model that many countries can download the information. We'll try and share with the audience. There's one more person online. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Doc. I just, punctually speaking for the record, I was just, I'm morning from Uruguay. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person because of other obligations here in Montevideo. I just wanted to say that when I've listened to all what you speakers have said and also contributions from the floor, we should look at things very well from an African narrative in the sense that a lot of people have talked about the Malabo Convention, but we have not really domesticated it. Do we really need to have individual country laws? You look at data flows, for example, under 46 of the Malabo Convention, it covers what we want to do with data flows by 2030 in terms of doing it through partnership, as the SDG 17 states. So I think for us to be able to be compliant among ourselves and collaborate better, if we can domesticate what is within the Malabo Convention, we'll move better as a continent. It's easy for our governments of African countries to just be GDPR compliant based on various cloud contracts they sign with European countries. But within our own continent, we can't even be compliant on our own Malabo Convention. So I would like to hear the views of the panel about domesticating our own African Union driven framework. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me try and summarize here, but just as I do this, prepare your last words, because we have to go. Your final thoughts. Okay. The point is this, is that there are questions that are coming out from the floor that require a concerted effort of collaboration. So there's no doubt that when we talk about harmonization of laws, whether it is at regional level, combining national level, continental level, there's a need to be able to harmonize and to be able to work together with the RECs, that's the regional economic communities, ensure that laws are applied equitably within the country. There is also what we call reciprocity of application of law, because if you don't join the Malabo Convention, for example, and somebody commits a crime in a country that has not signed the Malabo Convention, or you have not signed it, then it's difficult to get that criminal to be prosecuted in your own country. Therefore, looking at these treaties is a critical component. Members of Parliament need to go in and look at those, especially the committees that deal with communication. That's important, so that you can be able to have your country participate in these areas. And I'm glad you've mentioned the EU one as well. And there are many of these conventions that are out there, treaties, to make sure that we can register them. The other critical point is the issue around the political will. And this has got no doubt, it pushes wills, it pushes bounds to ensure that countries can be able to achieve the successes we are seeing in Tanzania, for example. And countries that have also moved from one tier to the next within the GCI assessment, congratulations to you, because you've tried your best, you've been assessed. The next thing is to move to the next level. Somebody talked about assessments. It's important to do assessments to make sure you understand where you are as a country. And this assessment, they don't mean that you are weak. It only means that you've got areas and gaps that you've identified that need improvement. There is the issue around enforcement of law, which my colleague talked about. The need to be able to apply what has been passed as policy or legislation depends on how it is enforced. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't help, because we are not enforcing the law. So enforcement and making sure that you apply the law equitably with equal measure makes a very big thing, sense. There was a question around business. My take on this, and I know I've really talked on various platforms, there are two parts to this issue. African countries need to look at cybersecurity and formulate business around the ecosystem of cybersecurity. Think about it this way. If we have an antivirus from one of the African countries, that is business. If we have tools that are developed to tackle cybersecurity within the context of the African continent, that is business. If you look at it in that way, then it makes sense. In the case that you're mentioning, where people are told to pay to be able to comply, but services are not delivered, then I agree with you. That is not right. But what we need to look at is, how do we regulate? Over-regulation doesn't look good. Less regulation is even worse. I look at it like salt. If you apply salt on food, if you put too much salt, it becomes too salty. But if you don't put salt, it becomes tasteless. So regulation must look at itself within that context. So you apply regulation in a way that serves both the users, the citizens, and so forth. There is also the issue around the jurisdiction, law. How does the judiciary take training and capacity building? I was in a country at one point, and I can't say which one, and I was told judges don't go to workshops. Judges go to retreats. You must take them outside to go and train them so that they can come back and because there is fear of not knowing something, and your juniors, when they see that you don't know anything, then it doesn't look good to you as a judge. There are challenges of training and capacity building, but we have to deal with it as we go along. Members of parliament need to be trained, executives need to be trained, decision makers at policy level need to be trained, and that is the way to do things. So we really need to have that concerted effort. And of course, the Malabo Convention has asked, it's true, there are some tenets within the Malabo Convention that many countries were not able to ratify because of the red tape when it comes to parliamentary decision-making process. It's very long. So I'll stop there, but I'll give my panelists 1 minute to make the last point. There we go.
I think people want to see Dar es Salaam, Marty.
Okay. Let's finish. For me, I won't even finish the whole 1 minute. I would say I want to leave you with 5 key takeaways. When you go back to your countries, go and invest a lot on cybersecurity awareness. We have Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we have Data Privacy Weeks, and so on. Make sure you utilize that. We need to develop our own skill set, so invest on capacity building. We need also to make sure we collaborate from within and from outside, so that we can be able to tackle these challenges as one. Number 4, I want us to invest a lot on proper tools that will be able to help us fight these cyber criminals. Because I've been to some places, you find they don't have enough tools. They don't have tools that they can be able to investigate, to detect, even to stop these cyber criminals. And the last thing, we need to have the right skill set on the right places. If you are having the wrong skill set in the right place and the right skill set in the wrong place, then your fight will be very difficult. Thank you.
So let me complement it. In order not to have a wrong skill set, assess before you adopt. So African countries should embark and implement a risk assessment. Assessment will give you the dashboard of the gaps. Then once you understand your gaps, your challenges and all that, then you can prioritize. Then the last one I want to say here, you also adopt cybersecurity before cybercrime adopts you. Because cybercrime is a business as well. So if you don't adopt cybersecurity, cybercrime will continue to learn about you and they will adapt to you. So that's my message. Thank you.
So let me take this opportunity to really thank everyone. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. And we really want to thank the audience and, of course, the parliamentarians who have really made a very significant contribution. We really want to thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. And let's also give our cameramen and the crew a round of applause for really taking care of this session. Okay, and the participants, a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. And I'll stop there and I'll hand over the mic to Soren. Thank you. The moderator.
Yeah, to the moderator. And you forgot we've been having the best food from Tanzania, so you could have given them a round of applause. Okay. Makta. Yeah, you have